This story takes place in beautiful Paris, where we meet Liu, a Chinese officer who has joined the police force. His mission: to help the French police capture a very powerful trafficker who recently made it onto Interpol's list. The first thing Liu does upon arriving in Paris is visit his uncle Tai, who has an interesting past and can help him find the man he seeks. When night falls, Liu begins to work, meeting with Agent Richard, who is in charge of the unit that will catch Mr. B. At first, Richard refuses to meet with Liu, saying he has things to do and keeps putting off their meeting. Then we can see that Liu's presence bothers him. It's clear that he doesn't like having international supervision during his work. Despite Richard's annoyance, Liu ends up finding out about the unit's plan to catch V. They have learned that he will arrive in the city that night, so they have already prepared everything. The ambush is planned at a hotel where they know Mr. Big will stay. Liu has some advice to improve effectiveness, but Richard ignores him. He doesn't want any Chinito meddling in his affairs and telling him how to do his job. When the moment arrives, Richard allows Liu to enter the room they have prepared to monitor Mr. Big. His penthouse is full of cameras and they can see him arriving with his men, two women of questionable reputation. The team prepares to act when one of the women starts dancing and taking off her clothes, then approaches Mr. B, pulls two daggers from her hair, and attacks him. Richard does nothing. It seems he agrees with what's happening and takes too long to give the order to intervene. But Liu runs to the room and after knocking out the guards, manages to enter and subdue the woman. Mr. Big is seriously injured. Liu wants to save him so he can pay for his crimes in prison. However, Richard has other plans. He orders his men to turn off the cameras and then pulls out a gun, putting a couple of bullets in Mr. Big's chest. Liu doesn't understand what's happening until Richard explains it to him. He just killed Mr. Big with Liu's gun, so he will be the only one blamed for all of this. The only problem occurs when one of his agents tells him over the radio that he couldn't turn off the cameras in time and everything was recorded. At that moment, Liu reacts and breaks free from the agents, running through the hotel and escaping Richard, who fires indiscriminately. Liu skillfully escapes unscathed. Now begins a game of wits with the agents, tricking them into thinking he has fled. But in reality, he returned to the surveillance room to steal the recordings of how Richard murdered Mr. Big and the testimony of what he planned to do to frame him. Now that he has the recordings, he needs to get out, which won't be easy since Richard's men are everywhere. So he decides to jump down the laundry chute Jackie Chan style. Richard realizes this and against his agent's advice, takes a grenade and throws it down the duct, causing the entire hotel to shake from the explosion. Luckily, Liu manages once again to escape with his life and the explosion gave him enough time to get out of the duct and into the laundry room. There we see a series of very exciting fights that only actors like him can give us, where he uses every object at his disposal to get rid of his enemies. It doesn't matter if he has to lock them in a washing machine or maybe iron their face. Anything goes when you're fighting against a dozen men eager to kill you. Having knocked out all the men he found, Liu, feeling overconfident, walks through the hotel lobby when one of Richard's men, dressed as a bellboy, surprises him by pulling out two machine guns and turning the place into a war zone. The bullets completely destroy the lobby. Fortunately, Liu is our protagonist, so he comes out unscathed for the sake of the plot and masterfully disposes of the man with a pool move. By the time Richard appears, Liu has already escaped with the recordings. This is a complete disaster and he ordered his men to turn the city upside down if necessary. But he wants him dead. Liu has nowhere to go. Richard was Liu's contact and he can't trust anyone. At that moment, he remembers his mentor gave him a necklace before his trip and told him to check it if he was in trouble. Inside, he finds a paper with a name and a 6-digit number. After asking for information about the name on the paper, a woman tells him that it's a train station in the center and the number is likely the combination for one of the safety deposit boxes. So Liu goes there and uses the code on the control panel, opening one of the boxes. There he finds a phone and behind it another combination. So he returns to the control panel to enter it. When the compartment door opens, it turns out to be very close to two officers who were gossiping nearby. Liu approaches and opens the box, only to realize that it is completely filled with weapons and the officers behind him try to arrest him. Quickly, he grabs a bracelet with sleep needles from the house and uses them to put the officers to sleep. Then he takes what he can carry and flees. The next morning, the Chinese defense minister arrives in Paris to discuss the hotel incident. The place was like a war zone, and he hasn't heard from his man on the case. Richard, ready for his visit, shows him evidence implicating Liu in Mr. Big's death, even having his weapon to prove the bullets used were his. At that moment, Chen's, the minister's assistant, phone rings. It's Liu, telling him to stay calm and not betray him. Richard wants to implicate him and has the evidence, but they must act cautiously. The minister leaves and Richard returns to his furious state, ordering his men to do whatever is necessary. But he needs Li dead before nightfall. Shortly after, his men bring Jessica, the girl who stabbed Mr. Big. It turns out the plan was for her to kill him and they wouldn't have to get involved. Everything went to hell because of Liu's presence, and that's why he wants to kill him so fervently. Richard has kidnapped Jessica's daughter, and since she also saw him, he knows he must kill her. But he puts this matter aside to catch Liu first. In the city center, Liu manages to meet with Chen and tell him what Richard did, including his plan to frame him for Big's death. Then he slides the recording across the table for him to prove his innocence. However, this will be difficult, as Richard's men have been following Chen since he left the embassy, and when they see the two together, they open fire. Chen ends up being killed, and Liu has no choice but to flee again, not without first giving us a few incredible fight scenes. And showing Richard that no matter how many bullets he fires, he can't kill the protagonist. In the morgue, Richard retrieves the recording tape. Now only Liu's testimony remains to prove his version of events, something he won't leave to chance. Liu must die at all costs. At Uncle Tai's house, Liu is treating his wounds when Jessica appears. She and Tai are old friends, and she turns to him when in trouble. He managed to save her before her boss Lupo, but this time she tells them both that she's in a huge problem and her daughter is in danger. While Jessica chats a bit with Liu, Lupo shows up and mistreats her, telling her to get back to work, and even tries to charge Liu for the time Jessica talked to him. Bad decision, since Liu has had a shitty day, and the last thing he wants now is to deal with a pimp who mistreats women. While the fight between Liu and the giant hired by Lupo takes place, Richard's men show up. They came to kill Jessica, but finding Liu is a double prize, so they open fire and kill Uncle Tai in the process. With his uncle's death, Liu gets tired of being democratic and attacks to kill. Now it's not just about his job, this is temporary, and the first to die will be his uncle's killer, whom he manages to catch amidst the chaos and uses chopsticks to send him to the other world. Later, Jessica confesses to Liu that she was the one who stabbed Mr. Big. She hadn't realized it because of his disguise and tells him that Richard has her daughter. If Liu helps her save Isabel, she will testify on his behalf to put Richard behind bars. It's a win-win plan, and to prove she's trustworthy, she'll do something for you. I don't mean that. You really have dirty minds. The first part of the plan is simple: recover the tapes. So Jessica lets herself get caught and is taken to Richard's office, who has a certain fondness for her due to past services and only ties her up in his office when he leaves. She manages to free herself and finds the tapes, then escapes to meet up with Liu and prove to him that she is not completely useless. Bad move, Richard. You should never mix pleasure with business. Immediately afterwards, they go to the orphanage where Richard has Isabel. However, they encounter an ambush and Liu has to fight his way out once again. During their escape, Jessica is shot in the chest and Liu must carry her to a hospital to save her life. While Jessica fights for her life, she makes Liu promise to save her little one. The next day, Liu shows up at Richard's office, calls him from the street to provoke him, then enters the police station and starts beating everyone present. Seeing Richard coming down with his men, he hides in what seemed like a closet, but it's a private dojo for officers to train, and now 30 martial arts expert officers will attack him mercilessly. The fight is long, exciting, and action-packed. But as expected, Liu emerges victorious and heads up to Richard's office, where he must face his right-hand man, who finally gives him trouble. His fighting style surprises Liu, but he eventually defeats him. After having fought and defeated everyone, Liu finds Richard holding little Isabel while pointing a gun at his head. Liu waits for the right moment to attack, and although he gets shot in the shoulder, he manages to stab Richard in the neck with a needle, precisely at a point known as the Dragon's Kiss, causing Richard agonizing pain and a horrible death as he loses control of his body. In the end, Liu reunites mother and daughter, and using the recordings, proves his innocence, bringing the corrupt officials to justice. And that's how this great movie ends. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and thanks for